Okay, good morning.
Hello.
And you are?
I am Maureen Israelson. I am in Dallas, Texas. Today is May 18th, 2015.
Very good. Let's start by, if you would, tell us, where did your family come from prior to settling in South Africa, or whatever you know about them?
My grandparents, my great-grandparents on my father's side were from Latvia. On my mom's side, from Poland. My mom's mom, during World War I, was petrified of the bombings. They lived in London and was sent away for a while, and when she returned, the same thing happened. So her parents sent her to South Africa to a cousin. She was one of 7 siblings, and she was the only one who came and met my grandfather in South Africa. I did not know my grandfather. Growing up, this grandmother was the only one I really knew. But all our family, because of this, on her side are from London, excepting, of course, my mom, her sister, and her brother were born in South Africa.
Did you ever find out what happened to some of the rest of the family that did not come to South Africa?
Oh yeah, we had a lot of contact with them. We still go back and see them. Most of my granny's sisters are not alive anymore, but the children are and the grandchildren are. So we keep up with certain ones.
Did any others end up in South Africa?
No.
That you know of?
No, two of her sisters would come, I'm not sure if it was annually or every second year, to come and visit her. And she would have a trip every year. She would sail for 6 weeks. It took 6 weeks to get from, I think it must have been Cape Town. Well, no, she left Port Elizabeth. I'm not sure where and how the ship went, but it was 6 weeks to go and see her family. And I remember the Sunday the ship left, all of us first cousins would go to the ship to enjoy what was there, and then we would run down the gangplank and wave goodbye to her.
That's some journey.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Tell us a little bit about your early beginnings in South Africa, what life was like in your childhood, maybe a couple of specific special memories.
Not very unique to South Africa, pretty common, but full of family. I mean, our family were our cousins were our friends. I lived in a small town in Port Elizabeth. My mom's sister lived 5 houses up the road. At one point, my dad's one sister lived 4 houses up the road. So we saw those cousins every day. And Friday nights were always at somebody's house with all the families. So there were just a lot of us. All the public holidays, we would go on picnics just around the coast, because I lived on the coast. So they would drive to a little spot and park all the cars and put a little cover up over the cars, and we would swim and play and eat, and it was wonderful, really wonderful.
What about Jewish memories?
Jewish memories. Gosh, my family was so involved. Both my parents chaired just about every major organization in our hometown. My dad was one of the founding members of the first Jewish day school there. He was the chair of what is our federation. My mom was president of WITSO, which was the Women's International Zionist Organization, both in our town and then in the province that we lived in. And I remember clearly her being selected as one of the delegates to go to Israel on a trip. And from then on, she always said, we are going there one day.
To live or visit?
To live, yeah.
Well, how did her dream pan out?
Oh, they went. Not initially. My youngest sister went on what is called Machon, where she went for a year to Israel. She met her husband, who's Israeli. So after her college days, she moved there, married him, and has been there ever since. My older sister, maybe a couple of years later, went with her family to live there. And eventually my parents made the decision to go and be with some of the family and at least be around grandchildren, and went to live there about 30 years ago.
Wow.
So it was a great move for them. They lived in a little town called Kfar Saba, very anglicized, walking distance to everything. It was a fantastic life for them.
So through the years, how often have you been able to go there and visit?
Oh my gosh, once a year,
What do you
sometimes
think?
twice a year. Right now my mom's ailing a little, so at least twice a year. My dad passed away about 7 years ago, so it just depends. They used to come here. We used to bring them every year, but it's too difficult now.
Right. So they went that way. So how did you, first of all, tell us a little bit about high school and beyond and how you met your husband?
High school, I don't remember, I just remember being with friends in the class, and I remember being very active in sports. Jewishly, I belonged to Habonim, the Jewish youth movement. Went to shul every weekend with my dad, Friday night and Saturday morning. A very Jewish love. Very protected in South Africa, but it was great. It was really great. I went to university in Johannesburg, which was one of the two only English-speaking universities at the time. That's where I met Hilton. He was studying dentistry there, and I was doing a Bachelor of Music. And from the first day we met, we kept seeing each other, and that was it.
So how many years did he have to complete his dentistry degree?
They did about 5.5 years. And I had graduated 6 months before him, because mine was kind of like a master's program. And we got married 3 days after he graduated, or the week after, and we left 3 days later. We left South Africa. We went and moved to London. There was reciprocity, which there still is today, between dentists in South Africa and in England, so he could practice. So we went with a bunch of friends, which was amazing. I mean, he practiced for 6 weeks, and then we would take a trip every 6 weeks to some place in Europe or Cornwall or Devon. It was great. And
At that time, were you planning, or you and your friends planning on staying in England?
no, Hilton had always wanted to specialise, and he applied to perio programs in the States, because the forefathers of perio, of course, came from here, and fortunately got into Tufts in Boston. So we went to Boston for 4 years, and then he hated the weather there. He hated the winters, and looked for a job elsewhere, and there was one available at Baylor, which was very lucky. So we moved to Dallas.
What year was this about?
1979 when we came to Dallas.
Did you have any children at the time yet?
Yes, we had 2 kids.
Okay.
Both were born in Boston. We knew of South Africans here. We didn't know anybody. But I came down alone. One was Beverly Lewin. I came down and stayed with her, and I rented an apartment in the same block of flats the apartments that she was in. And we just met a lot of people as we stayed here longer and longer.
Where did your kids, where did you enroll them in school? Where were they?
Solomon Schechter. Hilton was on the first board, I think, of Solomon Schechter. We used to go to Sheriff. So they went through Schechter until 8th grade, and our 2 girls went on to Green Hill after that. Our son left in 7th grade and went to public school.
So you made the decision to come here, where the weather's warmer and different from Boston. How was life, what was it like here when you first got here? What type of welcome did you get?
A culture shock for me. Very conservative, not particularly interesting. But honestly, there were times I would fly home after being on a trip and look outside and think, oh my gosh, there's just nothing here. It's totally flat. And these days when I fly back, I love it. I love the open spaces. It's grown tremendously, obviously, but it's peaceful. I love it. I love the people here.
So you had a good welcoming, you think?
Oh, initially?
In the beginning, initially?
The South African community really formed a huge bond. So, we were friendly with a bunch of South Africans and still are. and our kids grew up and they became part of our family. And then, yes, we branched out and we've met a lot of people.
Have you gotten involved in anything in the city itself besides Jewish activities? Anything civic-wise, or has Hilton?
No, not really for me. Hilton is very involved in organised dentistry. He's going up the ranks. He has been president of the Dallas County Dental Society and the Texas Dental Association, and currently he's actually campaigning to be president of the American Dental Association.
Wow,
so
wonderful.
We'll see how
Yeah.
that goes.
And what about you? Did you find employment here? Did you look for anything, or just basically settle in, raise the family?
No, raise the family. I have worked part-time in his office for 25 years.
Ah.
So I'm responsible for keeping accounting in order.
Behind every good dentist is his wife. Yeah, that's good. Wonderful. Would you say that you brought any cultural, not activities, but things, ideas, projects with you from South Africa that you carry on here in Dallas?
Really just the traditional Jewish experiences that we had growing up. We both had very strong Jewish backgrounds. Foods, of course. I mean, we have typical foods that are sometimes slightly different to what's available here.
Are you able to get them?
No, we make
Shipped
them.
in?
We make them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they are South African.
Yeah.
There are places that carry certain South African things. At this point, I really don't miss too much. You do initially. But the Jewish foods is what is a little different, and we just make them.
Thinking back on the time that you got here till now, what are you, just for fun, what are you the most proud of? Can you think of an example? Anything that you were the most proud of?
Honestly, it would have to be my kids. My kids in Hilton. Hilton's done remarkably well, and I'm really impressed with how he's travelled up the line of being president of all these organisations. My kids are fantastic, just great human beings.
Where are they now, and how have their families grown?
The oldest is married. She married somebody from Dallas, and they live in New York, and they have 3 little boys. The middle one married a Canadian, and they live in Toronto, and they have 3 little boys. And my son, or our son, is single. He lives in New York as well.
Well,
yeah.
so I guess you're doing a lot of traveling
Yeah.
to see everybody?
A lot of traveling, a lot of babysitting.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful. That's good thing. Good things. All good things. Tell me a little bit about gaining your citizenship. What was that like?
Very different to what people have these days. Hilton was working for a couple of years at the dental school in Boston, and I was on a visa that didn't allow me to work, and we applied. We didn't have to pay very much at all, and it processed and went through, which was great. They just had to be sure that there wasn't any other American that could take the job that he was doing in the dental school. So that went through easily, and then fortunately, once we were in Dallas, one of his patients was the woman who oversaw the citizenship certification. So she sped that up for us and had our interview for us, and we went to be inducted, and it went so smoothly because we had her helping. It was amazing.
Wow, that's good. You're lucky.
Yeah, very lucky.
Mm-hmm. Any regrets at all about coming here, specifically to the States or even to Dallas?
No, not to Dallas at all. Not to the States, because this is where Hilton thrived. The only thing is just the lack of family.
Do you still go back to South Africa at this point to travel, to visit?
Occasionally. Hilton's parents are not alive anymore. His sister is there. So occasionally, if there's a family wedding, we'll go back. I would like for it to be more, but you know, we're very busy with Hilton's campaign right now. Israel, of course, I'm there all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids go because it's just nice to be with cousins, so they go occasionally.
So no regrets, and
I
you
would
go.
have loved to be with my sisters and all the cousins, but Israel was just not the place that would have been perfect for Hilton.
Well, at least you get to visit, so that's
Mhm.
good.
Great.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
Before we end, well, in your own words, is there anything you'd like to add to anybody about the whole journey?
You know, it started off being tough in a sense, and yet we didn't recognize it because we were naive, I guess, in those days, and willing to do anything. And literally, we arrived with 2 suitcases of clothing. We had no expectations. I think that was the best part. I think it's harder for families who have lived in South Africa for a while and accumulated stuff and then need to bring it all over and make those decisions. We didn't have much, and it was fine. It was really fine. It was wonderful having the support of the South Africans because our backgrounds obviously were a little different. I don't regret anything. I think it was an amazing move for us.
Very good. I hope you have many, many happy years ahead of you. Visiting, traveling, seeing everybody, and
Thank you.
having a
You
rich
too.
one. And a Hilton too.
Thank you.
Mazel tov.